Get full episodes of The Damage Report as a podcast on iTunes and Android, and you can watch the live show every weekday on YouTube TV. So I think it's safe to say that throughout these primaries, this midterm cycle, some of the candidates that are exciting the most people and helping to drive most of the enthusiasm for the Democratic Party in these midterms are candidates that have embraced democratic socialism as a driving philosophy for their politics. And joining us now to help talk about the influence of that, we've got Allie Cohn of the DSA's National Political Committee. Allie, welcome to The Damage Report.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here because I'm very excited about what you and your organization represent in these midterms. So I want to talk about the sorts of candidates that you guys have been backing or that you're enthusiastic about in these midterms. Who are some of the standouts?
Well, first of all, I want to say that what's most exciting to me is that we have candidates from all over the country, Montana to Hawaii, traditionally red states like Tennessee, New York, Houston, all over. So that's really exciting. Some of the candidates that are in some of the more exciting races, I guess the closer races, we have Kristen Seal in Pennsylvania. We have Franklin Bynum, who's running in Houston for the criminal court judge position. We have Javanka Beckles in California. So some really exciting candidates.
And as you point out, these are not just congressional races necessarily. These are up and down the entire slate. And I'm glad that there's been more focus, it feels like in these midterms, not just for the DSA, but for others as well, that we can't ignore these state legislative races, races for district attorney and things like that. These are very important for helping craft the direction of the country as well. So kudos to you for caring about those things. But I also want to talk about, I have noticed that there has been a lot of talk about democratic socialism as a concept during this election in a way that I haven't heard about in previous ones. You might recall Sean Hannity's explainer on what democratic socialism is when he listed a whole bunch of scary concepts that all seemed awesome. What have you thought about the way the media has approached the concept of democratic socialism so far?
I just think they're trying to do the same Red Scare that we saw back in the day, and they're really trying to appeal to the base of voters that they think have consistently voted, and excluding the millennials and the younger voters because what we hear in the media is, oh, millennials aren't voting, and that's just not true. That's not what we're seeing in this election. And so what we're also seeing is democratic socialism is not a scary word to people under the age of 50. And to many people who are also over the age of 50, I don't want to be ageist about it, but it does seem like generationally that it is much more acceptable now amongst people under the age of 50 than we've ever seen before historically.
Well, I definitely have seen, I think it was in the 18 to 28 category. I saw that the favorability of socialism was actually higher than capitalism at this point, which certainly helps to buttress what you're saying. So would you say overall the sort of counterattack, I guess, in terms of the media, especially from the right on democratic socialism, although we've seen comments from people like Nancy Pelosi as well, largely isn't working?
Not in my areas of hanging out with people. And from what I've seen and talking to people nationally, democratic socialism is not a scary word. It's not a scary term. It's very appealing to people, like you said, because what you see is, democratic socialists believe that the economy and the society should be run democratically, and that. Our younger people today are really hurting. I have 3 of my own children, and as they come up and they see this inequality, they really see that there's got to be an alternative to the status quo. And we are that alternative. We're not a political party, but we're an organization who really appeals to the young people who see that inequality every day of their life, trying to go to college, student loans. So we fight for things like Medicare for all, college for all. We support those platforms that are going to make a better life for our working class individuals in the United States of America.
So just in case, I think most of our viewers here in the Damage Report are pretty aware at this point of how democratic socialism works, what it stands for and all that. But what lingering misconceptions have you seen bandied about the concept that you would want cleared up?
I think that really what I would want to say is that, democratic socialists want to achieve a more just society. We have many structures of our government and economy that really need to be radically transformed through a greater economic and social democracy so that ordinary Americans can participate in the many decisions that affect our lives. I think this whole idea of we have to scare people because the Democrats and the Republicans have had this two-party system for so long and their way of thinking. And so the only way to keep basically continuing to oppress us in a capitalist society is to tell us that these alternative ways aren't going to work. And so they continue to just divide. And what we really need to do is stand together in solidarity and say, we're not going to take it anymore. And that's what you're seeing.
This might seem like a bit of an oddball question, but I'm just curious. So in this cycle, you've had a number of politicians who affiliate, they're either a part of the DSA or they call themselves Democratic Socialists that have been running as Democrats. Can you conceive of a time or an opportunity where a Republican candidate would actually agree with any of the major precepts of democratic socialism?
Absolutely. So I live in Tennessee. I live in a red state. We actually have a locally endorsed candidate, Edward Nelson, who is a member of the Democratic Socialists of America, who is endorsed by our local chapter. And when he goes door knockings in a very red part of our, country, Tennessee and most of the South continues to be very red. When you talk about the issues, Medicare for all, and you talk about a living wage, that resonates with people. What we're also seeing is, particularly in his campaign and many campaigns in the South, are these, white nationalists who come out who want to create, this alternative message based on who's running for office. And so when you see that, we don't want to put up with that. We don't want that. So I think that, yes, you're seeing these issues resonate with people no matter what their political alliance has been in the past, because the issues that we're facing today are incredibly important. We are in a dire situation and people see that.
So on those issues, one last question for you. If some of these, especially congressional candidates who call themselves Democratic Socialists, get into Congress or even into state houses as well, and maybe are able to form some sort of caucus or something like that, and start to have an influence on the sorts of legislation that their party is pushing for, what are some areas that you would like to see them begin to address once they actually get into elected office?
Even before that, like when you look at someone like Javanka Beckles in California, who's running and supporting Proposition 10. So you see these ballot initiatives, for housing rights. You're seeing Proposition 4 in Florida for people who have been convicted of felonies to regain their voting rights. So just these basic human rights. That's what I expect to see. We've come so far off kilter with what we're looking at right now, with the presidency and the Senate and the House, that I don't think that the things that people would be asking for as Democratic Socialists are so way off base from what most people would agree with.
And I agree with that. Well, Allie Cohn, thank you for joining us on the Damage Report.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for watching this clip from the Damage Report. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and ring the bell on YouTube to get notifications of our new videos. And of course, you can catch the full Damage Report live every weekday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on TYT Network on YouTube TV.